Welcome to the Lone Zebra podcast, where I share my nitty-gritty health story and what I learned from the School of Hard Knocks. Things that doctors will never tell you. Hi, I'm your host, Diane Lalomia, and I'm glad you're here. We zebras need to stick together. Hello, today is episode 015 on the Lone Zebra. Today's episode is This Is Not My World. I want to talk about what kind of world do we want to live in? What changes do we want to see? Let's make the changes we want in the world. With faith, all things are possible. Today we're going to be talking about, do we really want to live this way? How can we make a difference? Does it really make a difference? Stay tuned and let's talk about it. Okay, this is a book I want to just mention. I'm not going to go into a long thing about it, but I do want to bring it to your radar, if you will. It's called Goodbye Germ Theory, Ending a Century of Medical Fraud and How to Protect Your Family. Written by Dr. William P. Trebing, Trebi as in boy, I-N-G. It's in its 6th edition. The copyright was originally in 2006, but he writes like it was yesterday when he wrote the book. The contents that he has kind of give you an overview of what the book is about. He has a disclaimer, and in that disclaimer, he's basically indicating that he is not an attorney, and the forms that he provides in the back of the book on how to help you and your family find the exclusions of the vaccine mandates and how to deal with schools and other institutions is not considered legal advice. They're better than nothing. Anyways, he goes on to say, when you need a quick fact in a hurry, the next chapter is how to educate your pediatrician. Next section is the foreword, the prologue, and the introduction. Then he gets into the chapters. Medical Mayhem, number 1. Chapter 2, The Poisoned Needle. Chapter 3, The Truth About Sudden Infant Death Syndrome and Cancer. Chapter 4, Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Flu? Chapter 5, 9/11, Terrorism, Paranoia, and a Pharmaceutical Company's Dream Come True. Chapter 6, Historical Chicanery. Chapter 7, Immunity or Lunacy. Chapter 8, Goodbye Germ Theory. Chapter 9, Spontaneous Generation. Chapter 10, Those Pesky Epidemics. Chapter 11, Got Research? Chapter 12, We're from the government and we're here to help you. Then the back of the book is the forms and the references. And there's quite a number of forms and references for you. And I would recommend this book for anyone that is like trying to figure out what to make of the medical system and where we've gone wrong and how to navigate it in the future, for the near future, until we can turn this boat around. Because the medical system is not serving us, it's serving corporate profits for big pharma. And the sooner we get everybody on the same page and waking up, the sooner we can make a difference and have a whole new world. I'll put a link in the show notes for you on this book. But in the book, I just want to start an introduction really on the germ theory. And it's Goodbye Germ Theory. Goodbye Germ Theory is on page 143. I really like the way that he puts this. He says, in a very real sense, the science is in quotes, of medicine is more like a dogmatic religion, preaching eternal damnation to non-believers and excommunication in the form of delicensing and jail for nonconformists. The ultimate demons in this religion are the, quote, germs, end quote, a group of fiendish opportunists who attack and take advantage of otherwise good and wholesome, God-loving folks. You are defenseless against these devils unless you pray with a high priest of medicine who act as an intermediary between you and God. If you pray with them hard enough, maybe God will help you. Most likely not, however, since the art of praying for a cure with the medical profession statistically looks worse and worse each year. With concerns to malignant cancer, the AMA has established 5-year survival rate guidelines for doctors, since that's usually how long the average patient endures before death. It has been shown statistically, however, that if you do not follow medical treatment for a malignant diagnosis, and if you choose to do nothing with your cancer, not even change your lifestyle or diet, on average you will live 12 years. This value can obviously be improved past the 12-year mark with proper life changes in diet and detoxification. For better than your survival odds look while choosing to stay with the standard medical approach of radiation and chemotherapy, your odds look pretty grim within the medical faith. Thomas Satz, MD, had this to say about the religion of medicine in Reason magazine in June of 1998. Using the coercive apparatus of the state to force people to submit to the ministrations of doctors of medicine is a persecution in the name of health, exactly as using the coercive apparatus of the state to force people to submit to the ministrations of doctors of divinity was persecution in the name of God. You see basically what the germ theory is in a nutshell. The theory is that you have the germs or you have the terrain. Louis Pasteur was the one that came out with the germ theory. However, he didn't make all of the discoveries that he supposedly claimed to have made. His cohort was Béchamp. Béchamp had talked about a microbiome or microbiota, which was the terrain theory. That in fact, if you keep your terrain toxic free and you give the proper nutrition to the person, that they will stay healthy. That the germ theory is the idea that germs just came out of nowhere and attack you and you're just doing your thing and you're susceptible. You have no defense, you're a victim. Well, in the terrain theory, you have the victory because you can decide how you're going to live your life and keep your body so that it's a temple and it's not able to be destroyed by the toxins around. It's kind of like the fish in the fishbowl. You know, if you got a fish in a fishbowl and the fishbowl looks pretty disgusting, what are you going to do? You're going to clean out the fishbowl or are you going to vaccinate the fish? Hello. Think about it. The book goes on to say in 226, Religious Freedom. The section following this chapter provides you with different methods of fighting for your common law rights, giving you the power of choosing whether or not to vaccinate your child. Many people whimper under such stress, saying they'd rather vaccinate their kids than to have to fight the system. I have also known people who have gone to local courts on the issue and lost simply because their case was based on asking the wrong questions. In America, we have religious freedom, not merely the freedom to practice whatever recognized organized religion we choose, but to practice freely a religion of one. If we choose to, even if no one in the world has ever heard of our religion before, we can be called the Church of the Rabbit in the Moon, worshiping the fictional character. One of the tenets of this religion is that it forbids vaccines, and if anyone makes you go against that tenet by mandating a vaccine on you or your family, they are violating your rights to freely exercise your religious beliefs granted under the Constitution. This is why practically all states have religious exemptions to vaccinations in their laws. You don't have to have a silly religion, and I'm not saying that either. I just want you to know that that's not necessary to be vaccinated, and I don't mean to make fun of my religion or my faith or anything of that nature. It's just indicating to everyone that you do not have to bow to the religion of science. Somebody told my husband that they were going to trust the science. Well, I studied science and I didn't trust anything they were saying. As a matter of fact, I've made it a lifelong commitment to whatever the government tells you to do, I do the opposite. Call it a defiance disorder if you will, but I've stayed alive this long doing what I've done, and I'll continue to do it because the government is not here to help. Just get that straight. First step. Reading from the book Women of Purpose, a daily devotional for discovering a meaningful life in Christ by Sarah Daigle. Day 36. My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me. John 10:27, New King James Version. Seattle, one of America's greatest cities, held our family captive by its wonder yesterday. We snapped photos the entire day, enjoying the sight of massive, elaborate structures and elegantly displayed gardens. The culture of Seattle is different than the culture of our smaller town on the Olympic Peninsula. American culture is vastly different than the cultures in Africa, where my sister lives and raises her family. Her twin lives in Canada with her 6 girls, and still another sister currently stays in Greece, surrounded with Muslim culture. I am soon to travel to Pennsylvania, where I will be drenched in Amish culture. Cultures may swirl around us, but God's love hovers over us. I wonder why we as Christians subconsciously assume that we can fit in today's culture, why we don't want to be different, why we allow and foster an attitude in our kids that to stand out is shameful and undesirable, whereas popularity is a thing to be pursued, grasped, and enjoyed. If I were to travel overseas, maybe we wouldn't mind standing out because we might not like what surrounds us as much as we love our home country. We forget that America isn't home either. Fellow Christians, we are not home yet. In the same way we are fine standing out in other cultures, we need to be fine standing out here. Jesus says that when we are persecuted, we are blessed, for the kingdom of heaven is ours. Matthew chapter 5, verse 10. Let's take note of 2 separate kingdom operations and choose our side distinctly. Let's remember that Jesus also says we cannot be friends of both, and if anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. 1 John chapter 2, verse 15b, New King James Version. Let's also remember that the things we tell ourselves are often based on the world's opinion, not Christ's. When we turn to Christ's view on things, our lives change from the inside. We carry a strength and confidence greater than anyone finds by fitting into their culture. Culture buzzes, swirls, turns, and changes. Women of purpose are bent on finding out what God says to them and living by unchanging values. Let's rejoice in our calling and call our children to hold God's truth as the most precious thing they will ever find. While cultures have opposing values, God's values are meant to determine each one and unite us in a common cause. And the rain descended, the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on that house, and it did not fall, for it was founded on that rock. Matthew chapter 7, verse 25, New King James Version. Lord, as your people, help us see clearly that we cannot be taken with the world and its thoughts more than with yours. Help us build our lives on the rock and leave sandy foundations to other builders. Amen. I invite you to wake up and do a great service for you and for your future. It's time to turn off the news. Time to turn off that TV. Do you ever think about it? It's called television, and it's also referred to as programming. Interesting choice of words, wouldn't you think? It's time to turn off that stuff. Get out of the social media. Push away from the computers. Put down the cell phones, and no one gets hurt. It's time to ask logical questions. Things like, how did this coronavirus come about? They haven't isolated it exactly. Then do we really know what it is and how we get it? You know, one thing that I found interesting was when this whole outbreak took place, just prior to that fall before in 2019, I got a letter from the local hospital where I'd been a patient informing me that my HIPAA laws had been broken, that they had leaked out my personal health information. They didn't tell me where, they didn't tell me when or how or any of the particulars, just kind of like in my face, we did it and there you go. What are you going to do about it? Ha ha. You know, I kind of saw the COVID thing coming down the pike. I could see some writing on the wall that told me something was amiss. Yeah, it was like about the first week or so, I kind of wondered what the heck was going on, but it didn't take me long to see some private citizen reporters out on the streets showing me what the hospitals really look like when they were claiming they were overrun with COVID patients. The lies I could see from my own eyes from the very get-go. I knew in my heart there was something weird about this whole thing. And so when I went to some groups that I had participated in the past, and they were wearing masks and asking me to sign this contact sheet, I decided not to be part of that. I went home. I didn't need to be associated with the fear that was going on. You know, fear just makes people get stressed out and increases the sickness, especially with mast cells. Stress is directly related. One thing I did learn too was that electricity is what our bodies are made of. We are more of a physical entity, if you will, that is comprised of both biology with the microbiome and the electrical systems in our nervous system that dictate a lot more than we've been led to believe. There are things that I've learned about grounding, and you can go back to my blog post about grounding to learn more and how the exchange of electrons from the earth through your feet can balance you as far as your electrical system goes. EMFs are not your friend, and neither are RF. That's electromagnetic fields and radio frequencies. Do you know that microwaves operate with a radio frequency that cooks your food from the inside out? Did you also know that it's not safe to stand within 3 feet of a microwave during operation, especially if you have a pacemaker? Do you know that the food that you cooked in the microwave is now completely void of any nutrition? Because the microwave, the radiation, destroyed all the valuable nutrients that were in that food. Do you know that the radiation that you receive as treatment for cancer destroys not only the cancer cells, but all the other cells it hits? And it does a real number on the body as a whole. Do you know that EMF people are very sensitive and that they can detect EMF in the environment that will literally make them sick? And they cannot be around it, yet no one can see it, and most people don't believe them. But your cell phone in public being turned on, your cell phone turned on, and this person over there, their cell phone, and everybody's cell phone, and all the systems that are inside these stores for their inventory, they're run on 5G, it makes it impossible for a hypersensitive person, HSP, to be out in public and be comfortable and not have to deal with detoxing from all that electromagnetic field. I feel like we should have EMF-free zones, just like we have smoke-free zones. I really think that we need to take it into consideration about what the EMF's doing to our bodies. And I'm going to tell you some things that you can do to make things better for you and your family around EMFs and Wi-Fi's and RF. You can have your technology, but don't let technology have you. You know, I've been thinking a lot lately. I know, it's enough to make my head spin, huh? I was talking about on a previous episode about my voltmeter experience and how I had twice the electricity my husband did. I know, kind of weird. But anyways, that experiment was really telling about how our bodies are really an electrical system. We're nothing more than really a battery walking around. Some of us stronger than others. You've heard that advertisement, copper top battery. Well, made me kind of think about things. When somebody's a redhead, sometimes they're called a copper top. I had red hair. But you know what really made me wonder? Was the copper in conjunction with electricity. It's a real powerful conductor of electricity. That's why it's used in wiring and batteries. You know what makes copper high in your body? Well, several different things, but one that seems to be why women are more affected by autoimmune diseases, I do believe. It's because they have more copper. And they have more copper because they're the ones that are taking birth control pills with estrogen. Or they're getting a hysterectomy and having hormone replacement therapy with estrogen. Or perhaps they've got a copper IUD. Ooh, copper. That is a common thing with women. That is not with men. And the reason why we're seeing a lot of autoimmune disease today, I believe, is because the birth control pill came around in the 50s, 60s, something like that. I think it was probably early 60s. And the generations that we've seen of autoimmune diseases has gotten exponentially greater. Well, it's a combination, I believe, of the birth control being a contraceptive that became widespread, and a combination of all of the technology as we've gone from 1G, 2G, 3G, 4G, now 5G, and there's already talk about 6G. We haven't even stopped to think about all the other technology we've already had or been exposed to. The x-rays that we've had, that's radiation. Every year getting a breast mammogram, radiation. Men don't have that every year. Women have hormones with pregnancy and childbirth that causes a difference in the mast cells because the hormones are changing and the copper levels change with it. Apparently, they all go together. Mast cells seem to be oftentimes brought on around puberty or hormonal changes. Flares get worse. I know I was much better during pregnancy with histamine issues and whatnot because there's a much more increased DAO available to the mother during pregnancy, which I'll get into in another episode. But the hormone fluctuations can cause the copper balance to be out of balance, if you will. Did you know that a good majority of people around the globe, not just US, but also US, are deficient in zinc? Zinc is the balance mineral for copper. If your zinc levels are low, your copper is high, and vice versa. There are different ways to determine whether or not you're low in zinc. Because the majority of people are low in zinc, it's pretty safe to say that you probably are too. Zinc can't be stored in the body like a lot of vitamins can be. So when you run out, you're out. I had telltale signs that I was low in zinc and I never knew it. Growing up, I had horizontal lines on my thumbnails. Do you think a doctor ever noticed and pointed that out to me? No, because they have no clue when it comes to nutrition or nutritional deficiencies and what to watch for. They have been trained in the medical establishment to push pills, to write prescriptions, to identify a pill with an ill and be what my husband calls a mechanic, basically. They don't have any schooling, if any at all, on nutrition. And if they have any, it's very, very limited. And I just watched a docuseries today that said that medical doctors get maybe a half an hour on vaccines information. And we call them the experts. I just ask you folks to take a moment and think about the combination of the 5G coming out and the coronavirus coming out simultaneously and the areas that it came out. Just take a few minutes and think about the logic. See if you don't see some kind of a correlation there. At least it might plant some seeds. Maybe make you think. And if you're a highly sensitive person, like I am, maybe try taking some zinc. Now, I am going to combine my zinc with other vitamins as well because I know I'm deficient in several different vitamins. One vitamin alone or one mineral alone is not the magic pill, if you will. There is no such thing. With me, it's going to definitely make a difference. I saw it already because the grooves that were in my thumbs when I started supplementing with zinc, the grooves disappeared. They're still faintly there. And I believe that I've ascertained that I have to have supplementation of zinc for the rest of my life because of a genetic situation. And some people also refer to it as pyroluria, cryptopyrrole, or pyrrole disorder. And I'll be talking about that more in another episode. But I just wanted to bring it up that the copper being out of balance and being high in so many women, if you are HSP or have a hypersensitive person type situation going on, then try turning off a lot of your EMF and exposure, and try taking some zinc and see if you don't notice a big difference in your ability to sleep, less tension. Today's featured music is Till That Blessed Day, performed by Joy Spring. All information in this podcast or on the website, blog, or in newsletters is for educational purposes only and not intended to be construed as medical advice, diagnosis, or prescription. Please seek the help of a medical professional to get treatment for your particular condition. Thanks for listening to the Lone Zebra podcast. Don't forget to check out the show notes at dianelalomia.substack.com. That's Diane, D-I-A-N-E, Lalomia, LALOMIA.substack.com. Music on the podcast is provided by Epidemic Sound. See the show notes for featured music and artists. Don't forget to share this podcast with your family and friends, especially fellow zebras. And don't forget to rate The Lone Zebra on your favorite podcast app so others can find me. Until next time, blessings. Have a great day.